Hello everybody, welcome back for another video. Hope you're all doing fantastic and that you're all having an absolutely wonderful day. And without any further ado, let's jump right into it. It's been a very busy, slightly weird and chaotic weekend. A lot happened, as always, as it always does within the cryptocurrency space, but you are going to notice very clearly, you're going to see a very clear pattern in the news today as everything is kind of lining up to the exact same street. You'll see what I mean. It's very, very odd. The United States Securities and Exchange Commission, otherwise known as the SEC, has announced a delay on their decision-making process for 7 spot Bitcoin ETF proposals. Yes, you might remember Thursday and Friday, Thursday more so. It's a very near jovial time as we were told that by the 4th of September, they would have made a decision on their selection of spot Bitcoin ETFs that have kind of all bundled together into one gigantic ETF group. However, the weird part is that they should have announced this on the 4th or the 5th of September. And I believe they ended up doing it like Friday afternoon or something really weird like that. The other weird part is that they announced all 7 were being delayed at the exact same time, which we've never seen before within the cryptocurrency space. It's typically 1, maybe 2 at the exact same time. They end up getting pushed down. A week later, they'll announce another one. A week later, another one. 7 at the exact same time. The regulatory body is currently navigating through a multitude of new applications. The decision deadlines for the range of funds, including BlackRock's iShares Bitcoin Trust, Fidelity's Wise Origin Bitcoin Trust, Van X Bitcoin Trust, Wisdom Tree's Bitcoin Trust, and Invesco Galaxy Bitcoin ETF have all been extended to the 17th of October. If this is your first go around, I'll explain to you how it works. The SEC has done the exact same thing for a decade. It's always been the same. There's an application put in for a Bitcoin ETF. There's a certain time frame that they have to say yay or nay, that is the SEC. They get to that deadline, and the SEC, for some reason, making their own rules, which is, they end up saying that they're going to delay it as they need to think about it further. Now, years ago, this made sense as we, within the cryptocurrency space, believed that they were actually thinking about it, that they were trying to give themselves extra time because maybe there was extra paperwork to read, maybe more things had to be signed, maybe more things had to be gotten in order. But over the last 10 years, it would appear as if there is no actual extra thinking. They seemingly just don't want to approve it. They kick the bucket down the road, whatever. And then they end up saying no all over again. So now the time frame, the extended time frame that they give themselves is now the 17th of October for all of them, except for the Valkyrie Bitcoin Trust Fund, which apparently is now the 19th of October, so basically 2 days later. And the Bitcoin Bitwise ETP Trust will have the decision 1 day before. So they're basically all clustered together. They should have done this on the 4th of September. They did it on, I believe it was the 1st of September. So we will probably get an answer to all of these as well at the exact same time. The SEC cited the need for additional time to thoroughly review the proposed rule changes and address any concerns. There are concerns that the SEC has stated over and over has to do with the potential of wink market manipulation. This is all that the SEC has been able to say over the course of the last couple of years. It's the same with every other lawsuit that they filed against cryptocurrency companies. We believe that this one thing is wrong with that, and then they lose the lawsuit, and then they end up scrambling, trying to figure out what else they can say as to why they lost the lawsuit or why X and Y was actually rejected. It's been the same exact thing for Bitcoin ETFs. They simply say the exact same thing because it, in essence, cannot be disproven and cannot be proven that the SEC is actually lying in this case. So they may say that we need to address market concerns about market manipulation, but we can't tell exactly what manipulation they're talking about because the SEC is not transparent, and therefore people in the public that they're supposed to serve have no idea what they're ever actually talking about. So as you might have imagined, this was the most infamous news of the day. A lot of people were not too happy with another delay. It seemed logical that it was going to happen as they've done this all before, but you might remember the news that we had all of last week. It was just kind of a lot of analysts were coming forward and saying something good might happen because there's such a cluster of them all together, and they were expecting, once again, for the SEC to do something different than they've been doing over the course of the last 10 years. As you might have imagined as well, Bitcoin's price began to fall, as did much of the cryptocurrency market. It's more of a hard mimic of 2018, 2019, where every time we got a Bitcoin ETF delay, there was a fall in the cryptocurrency market because people were like, woe is us, we'll never get a Bitcoin ETF, and therefore things have to be sad. It's also similar to the, once again, don't forget this, to the end of the week previous Bitcoin futures ending, where we were told that we also had to fall in price as well. It's very weird how the market has developed over the course of the last, I want to say 7 or 8 years, where a lot of the ideas that Bitcoin would simply follow the inverse of market movements, and the idea that other countries were collapsing or could not deal with their currency, or people were swapping into other currencies because theirs wasn't as good, that would move Bitcoin. But we're in a very different place now where Bitcoin simply moves based on the idea that if we don't have something that the traditional market has, then therefore something has to be wrong with our market, if you understand what I'm saying. Bitcoin is fine as is, as it is transacting trillions of dollars every single month through its chain. We've seen the charts, we've seen the numbers. It's what's happening. Bitcoin's being used more and more around the world. There are more and more wallets opening up every single day who are using Bitcoin. There's still a tremendous amount of news, which I don't always report here because sometimes it's like, oh, okay, cool. There are a lot of countries that are still going through heavy inflation, not hyperinflation, but it's still pretty bad. And we can see that people within these countries are accessing websites that allow them to create and or make a Bitcoin wallet, and therefore we assume that they're going there because their current currency, paper one, isn't doing well, so they're shifting their money into Bitcoin at least as some type of a little hedge. So things are going great for Bitcoin, and they probably will continue to do so as long as even if we just have this current state of demand where these whales are and normal people are buying up tons of Bitcoin. And then Bitcoin's halving continues to roll out every 4 years. Logically, Bitcoin will be fine. But we have for some way entered into this place of, well, Bitcoin, of course, is going to drop down in price if we don't get the thing that the SEC hasn't allowed us to get over the course of the last 10 years. Kind of thing. Yeah. So very popular news or unpopular news. SEC extends review period for all 6 pending Bitcoin spot ETF applications until the 17th of October. A lot of news as to where Bitcoin will go next. We're in a very weird spot now. This isn't necessary. How do I frame this into actual words? Where we are now in the market cycle is kind of historically a lull period. I think we've received a lot of optimistic movements in prices, whether they be up or down dramatically, because of the idea of a potential Bitcoin ETF sometime in the future. You've seen the numbers before. The analysts are still talking about it as well. If you at any point you've caught CNBC, Fox Business, any place you find your financial news, and they're talking about Bitcoin and or the Bitcoin ETF, the general idea is that if a Bitcoin ETF gets approved, that sometime by next spring, we'll have $100,000 Bitcoin. The famous number is constantly 130,000. I'm not sure how they're all getting to that very odd $130,000 by next April or May. So the excitement is definitely there. Normally, if we were not in the throes of this idea that the US SEC was having to decide on multiple Bitcoin ETFs, we would probably just be trending sideways in price. One of my friends, hello, I doubt he's listening. We were talking about this about a day or two ago. This is his first cycle. So cycle meaning like, not that you've been here for 3 years. No. Like, it's as far as you got into the market around 2021 when prices were rising. Everything was euphoric. Everyone's making money. A lot of people barreled their way into the market, started making money. By the time the market was falling, you remember what happens. So the last year and a half, give or take, have been like the downtrend. This is historically what always happens within the cryptocurrency market. It's always been the same. Usually, the months before the halving takes place, prices are usually trending sideways until the news begins to roll in around January, February that the halving is near, the halving is nigh, the halving is almost here, the halving is going to happen, only this many more blocks until the halving. You'll see. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about in the next couple of months. Prices then begin to tick up as the excitement gets there. For some reason, people need articles to tell them that there's going to be less Bitcoin created during the halving, as if that hasn't been a thing for every other halving. Normal people begin to buy more Bitcoin. Whales begin to buy even more Bitcoin than they were before. A lot of you out there will begin to uptick your amount of buying Bitcoin. Bitcoin's price begins to slowly move up. There will, of course, be days where Bitcoin's price goes down for whatever is in the news that day. Bitcoin's price looks like it's finally recovering. We end up getting to the point where the amount of accumulation has increased by so much it ends up making it onto normal news. The halving happens, prices drop that day. It's always the same. It's the same exact thing when Ethereum had their massive upgrade. It's the same exact thing in 2020 when Bitcoin had its halving. There's excitement, and for some reason, people just don't imagine the 24 hours after the halving is taking place. Like, it's all this excitement. We finally get to the halving, and everyone goes, okay, I think I'm done with Bitcoin. And that's when the crazy movement up begins, because people realize, once again, people need to be told. I'm not certain why. People need to be told that, remember 24 hours ago how much Bitcoin was being created? Well, now there's 50% of that. And everyone goes, oh my gosh. And everyone goes crazy. Bitcoin's, market share begins to rapidly increase. It ends up making it into the news. Is Bitcoin the only thing you should buy? It's been the same every single cycle. Every single cycle. You'll definitely see the news because we're still following the exact same trend. The only thing that's currently different right now is the fact that we have this like crazy moment where we could potentially see a Bitcoin ETF and also multiple Bitcoin ETFs through at the exact same time. And this is why you're seeing so much price confusion. Normally, I'm telling you, prices would be going completely sideways. We've had many times, many cycles, many years. It would not be moving. And it is one of the most frustrating things in the entire world. There's not a movement up. There's not a movement down. We would literally look at prices, and Bitcoin's up by 0.04% for like 2 weeks. It's very, very odd. The huge discussion right now, for those of you not looking at the screen or who haven't been paying attention to any type of price news, is where Bitcoin's price goes next, based off of the news that the ETFs are delayed. There was also something else happening. Oh, the entire thing with the interest rates. For some reason, that's still major cryptocurrency news. People think as Bitcoin is roughly around 26,000, that there could be a breakdown to 23,000. Sure, why not? It's definitely possible. There are other people out there who are trying to fearmonger, who are trying to terrify you. I've seen a lot of people talking about Bitcoins going back down to 8,000. That's not happening. I can tell you right now for a fact, unless there is some type of insane world monetary event, banks collapsing, everything, the people who are printing money, you see them running in the streets with their hands in the air flailing. Bitcoin's not going down to 8,000. It is just that no one knows where the price is going. So I think it's usually a lot easier to swing people in either direction. It's either doom and gloom or like Bitcoin's going back to 30. We should be trending sideways. This is a hyper accumulation period. You've seen the news before. This is what whales are doing. This is what even, dare I say, normal people are doing. Everyone's accumulating as much as they possibly can in anticipation of the supply shock. normal people realizing that there's not a lot of Bitcoin out there, and two, that the halving has happened and that they should have been purchasing or accumulating Bitcoin over the course of the last 2 years. If this is your first cycle, I'm telling you explicitly exactly what's going to happen. Same exact thing to my friend. I was telling him, because he's rather pessimistic right now because he doesn't understand the actual market cycles. All he sees is that he jumped into the market when everything was honky-dory, everything was going completely insane. And I was like, dude, just understand that the market's going to go down. But you don't think that way when you're making tens of thousands of dollars every single day. Not many people would, but you'll see when we actually end up getting back up there. Tying directly, not lightly, directly into everything that we've been talking about. I told you that you were going to see a pattern. The pattern is very, very clear. It's a bit insane what happened over the course of 24 hours. It says in a pivotal development, sure, why not? Analysts from JP Morgan Chase forecasted that the US SEC is poised to approve several spot Bitcoin exchange traded funds. One of the major news stories of the day. This is not just from JP Morgan. They're from multiple other banks. JP Morgan just happened to be the most prominent one that was in the news talking about this. All these banks, all the institutions, all the analysts have pointed to one thing. They believe that because of the mass delay of multiple spot Bitcoin ETFs, that the SEC is actually planning something huge and that they're going to allow every single spot Bitcoin ETF to go through at the exact same time, sometime within the next 6 weeks. Right. This prediction emerged following Grayscale's landmark legal win against the SEC, a decision that could reshape the cryptocurrency landscape. Earlier in the week, a federal court mandated that the SEC reconsider its previous rejection of Grayscale's application to transfer their Bitcoin trust, GBTC, into a BTC ETF. The court labeled the SEC's denial as arbitrary and capricious. Questioning the rationale behind permitting futures-based ETFs while rejecting spot-based ones. For those of you who didn't get that, the judge and every other person on the planet has been saying the exact same thing. Every other country who's wanted a spot Bitcoin ETF has it. The SEC has constantly allowed other forms of Bitcoin ETFs and or futures through that look exactly the same to a normal Bitcoin spot ETF, except they're not accumulating Bitcoin. So why would you allow these 48 other things but keep rejecting this one thing? There's no actual cause for you to do it. Grayscale has a trust. Now understand, Grayscale's Bitcoin trust is an ETF, but it is simply called a Bitcoin trust, and they want it changed into the letters ETF, and the SEC said no. What they have is already a Bitcoin ETF. Understand that. It is a fund that is offering shares in relation to the amount of Bitcoin that Grayscale is buying. Grayscale for a number of years has been one of the largest Bitcoin buyers on the planet. You can't say no. That's like, how do I even say? I can't even find like a weird story or parable for it. Like I simply can't find anything. No, I can't find one because it doesn't make any sense. They have an ETF already. They just want to change the letter so that it's legally an ETF. So why would the SEC say no? Last Thursday, the SEC announced a delay in their decision-making process concerning spot Bitcoin ETF proposals from several companies, BlackRock, Fidelity, Invesco, yada, 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 until at least mid-October. JP Morgan's analysts interpret this postponement as a sign that the SEC is inclined to approve multiple spot Bitcoin ETF applications concurrently. Such a move would negate any first mover advantage and stimulate competition, potentially leading to reduced ETF funds. If you allow one of them through, they can do whatever they want. They can have 15% fees. They wouldn't ever stupidly do that because no one would ever use their ETF. But if you allow multiple at the exact same time, they kind of compete against themselves, and therefore, logically, SEC logic, they wouldn't be able to wink manipulate the market on their own. If you have 7 different ones, they kind of all have to play by a leveled playing field, as opposed to allowing one and they can kind of run amok for as long as the other applications take, another 3, 4, 5 months until one goes through by the SEC. So the idea being, and I cringe even saying this, the idea of a leveled playing field, because we know that the SEC doesn't care about anything leveled or anything to do with like justice or harmony or peace or trying to help other people. But this is the idea, and this is across from multiple analysts. They think that normally, once again, there's usually a delay in the actual, okay, this one we're not going to let through next Friday. Okay, this one we're not going to also let through. The following Wednesday, we're going to delay this application, but they did all of them at the exact same time. Should Grayscale's trust receive the nod to convert into an ETF, it would likely face intensified pressure to lower their fees as well. Yes, by far one of the most spoken about news stories of the day. Everyone, for some reason, is believing the exact same thing. I'm trying my darndest not to hold my breath. I've gone over that with you before. It is a bit difficult to not be excited about something like this, even though, and I would say it doesn't directly affect me in that I am not getting the physical Bitcoin ETF. It's something that's been in the cryptocurrency news for 10 years. And if you hear about something constantly that you know will have a positive effect on other investments that you have, of course it gets you lightly excited, and therefore the, potential joyous momentum that we experienced just a couple of days ago with the idea that this could actually end up being pushed through, tying directly into all of that as well. You may, once again, I told you would see a pattern. And here it is. Here's the other part of the pattern. Former chairman of the US SEC, his name is Clayton, recently shared his insights on the probability of the SEC approving a spot Bitcoin ETF. In an interview with CNBC, Clayton discussed the growing demand for cryptocurrency exposure among both retail and institutional investors, suggesting the approval of a Bitcoin spot ETF is only a matter of time. In an interview that came in the wake of the SEC's decision to delay its ruling on multiple Bitcoin ETFs, including one submitted by BlackRock, the world's largest everything, while Clayton did not reveal whether he would have approved a spot Bitcoin ETF during his tenure, which I thought was actually really funny because he rejected multiple of them. He is or was what Gary Gensler is right now. People have been trying. The Winklevoss twins, I believe, were the first peoples to try and get a spot Bitcoin ETF through, and I believe that was in 2013, maybe 2014. 2013 sounds more correct in my head. It's not like Clayton was like, oh, I've never had the opportunity to reject the Bitcoin ETF. No, he's rejected multiple because he was still the head of the SEC during 2020. So it's weird that multiple articles were talking or people were asking him, would you have approved a spot Bitcoin ETF if you were at the SEC? And it's like he was the literal head of the SEC, and he said no multiple times, like dozens of times. However, he highlighted several key factors that indicate a growing appetite for such a product within the investment community. Clayton firmly stated that Bitcoin is not a security like we care what this guy says, emphasizing that it serves as an asset that retail and institutional investors desire access to. One of the largest conundrums within the cryptocurrency space, and this is something that I said years ago as well, and I still feel the exact same way. Back in 2018, the discussion began, what do institutional investors need to want to get into Bitcoin? This mainly came from Gemini and this came from Coinbase. The idea was, we have normal people in the market. Who cares about them? What do the rich people want? What do the rich people need to get into the market? And this discussion of how do we make sure that institutions and rich people feel comfortable enough within the space to make them want to invest in a product, an ETF, a futures, or anything, a derivative that derives from Bitcoin. And I remember saying this clear as day. What's the point of investing in Bitcoin futures if you want exposure to Bitcoin as opposed to just buying Bitcoin? One of the main things from articles back then, and even the idea of Jay Clayton saying, well, institutions, desire access to this. Why not just buy the Bitcoin? And I go as far as to say, if the idea is to have a product that mimics Bitcoin's price on screen, that shows that this company is accumulating Bitcoin, and therefore the amount of the price of their trust is based on the price of Bitcoin, fractionalized as it would be across, you're usually not just buying one entire Bitcoin through an ETF or some other kind of fund. You can also trade these things. The reason why it's called an ETF, it's an exchange traded fund. It is a fund based off of Bitcoin that is traded on a stock exchange. So you would potentially be trading this ETF as though it were a stock. So if you're a stock trader trading in Bitcoin's price, you already have access to that. Can anyone tell me how? Yeah, through a cryptocurrency exchange, you can already do that. So this is why the idea that we need a Bitcoin ETF has always been rather confusing to me, because we don't. Because these people could also just simply buy up Bitcoin and trade it back and forth on a normal cryptocurrency exchange. Anyway, as you might have imagined, also very popular news. I'm not understanding why people within the cryptocurrency space are so quick to, and I don't want to use the word forgive, I use the word forget. That Jay Clayton was the one who launched the lawsuit against Ripple and caused us 3 years of confusion as to if other coins were also going to go down to zero because of the lawsuit. Remember all the stuff that we still have to deal with because the US SEC and Gary Gensler are talking about every single altcoin as a security? You know where that came from? Jay Clayton. Yeah, that's, see? But every time this guy's in the news now, everyone is acting like he's their buddy, he's their friend, he's super cool, Whoa, he would have allowed one through? That's crazy. No, he's lying. I can show you articles. You can find them yourself. You have access to the free internet. You can find articles from 2013 to 2020 about the rejections of Bitcoin ETFs, and look who was the head of the SEC at that time. However, reeling it in, a lot of people do believe that we are listen, I will try to tell you to get your hopes down, but I know that it won't work because, once again, we've been waiting for a decade for this. The news today is, in the next 6 weeks, the year's flying by, the middle of October, we could potentially hear that the US SEC has allowed multiple spot Bitcoin ETFs to go through at the exact same time. Do I believe it? No. It just doesn't seem logical at this point that the SEC would backtrack and actually do something that's right, that every other country has been doing for the last 5 or 6 years. However, the news of the day is that a lot of people believe so, and we'll see. And I'll even give you this one. I'll see you all back here in 7 weeks, and we'll see exactly what's happening with the market. But I can already tell you what's going to happen, because the SEC does not change unless we get what's this woman's name, Hester Pierce. Unless we end up getting her as the head of the SEC, who she said multiple times, she's like, yeah, I would let one through, because she's thinking logically. Trying not to get my hopes up. That's the prices went down on the news that the SEC delayed 7 different Bitcoin ETFs. However, a lot of different analysts across multiple banks and the former head of the SEC believe that it's just a matter of time, potentially within the next 6 weeks, that we are going to see a physical spot, 7 of them within the United States. Sorry for the weird noises. The idea has always been, if we got one physical Bitcoin ETF, once again, that we'd see a $100,000 Bitcoin before we even hit the halving. What happens if we have 7 at the exact same time? I'm not talking about like a $700,000 Bitcoin, but I mean, like, that seems like it would be a bit chaotic. Like, if you like cracked a hole in the wall and like some water flowed through, logically, if you crack 7 holes in that wall, the wall might break down and all the water might flow. Okay. So anyway, we'll see. We will see. Okay. Let's move on. As always, a very special thank you to my Patreon supporters. Jimmy Jim, American Crypto Academy, Bodie McBoatface, Sam Ratter, Dotha Diddy, Medi Cryptos, Crypto Gambino, Auspicious Agile and Blockchain, Jamie Saad, and let's move on, Empire Queen, Bitcoin, Ben Arachno, Dave the Dealer's Den, Captain Summing in the Z-Way, Lay, Mobarazi, VB Nerd 21, Lord of Silva, Quarter Biddy, Troy, all good. Space Case, Need a Miracle, Pattern, Nostra, Navarro, Williams, Utopia 569, Moonman, High XR, Pinos, Roma, John Sarcini, Anima, Rita, Abilbiophobia, Adam Grayscale, Wise Knight, Owl, 242 to the World, Bankroll Network, Crypto Artist, Coldy 3D, Setsuna, Paxis, Jim Garner, Jeremy Fox, Minting Coins, Yes to Crypto, Anytime Fitness, Monch Corner Staff, Bake Me a Cake, Tigger, Macho Nisa, and on Crypto with Lionel. Thank you all very, very much for your support. Thank you to everyone who is a member of the channel. Thank you to everyone who left a like or who left multiple comments to help out with the algorithm. At the moment, Bitcoin is up by 0.39%. It's a really choppy movement up, but it's still moving up. Ethereum's up by 0.22%. XRP is up by 0.5%. Solana's up by 1.8. I am constantly confusion when it comes to that coin and the Lumens is up by 10%. Sure, why not? Sure, why not? Chainlink is up by 1.9%. Monero is up by 2%. OKB is up by 2.7% as well. Anything crazy? Arbitrum is up by 3% at the momento. Everything else is lightly in red. Tezos is up by 0.95 as well. And EOS is still clinging to the top 50. That is the most surprising thing in the entire world for me as well. I do sincerely hope that you have all enjoyed. I do hope that you all are having a great day, a great morning, a great afternoon, a great evening, wherever you are, wherever the heck you might be. I do hope it is absolutely fantastic. Thank you all once again for watching, listening, liking, commenting, and or supporting. And I will most certainly be talking to you all soon. See you.